Hello, everyone. It's Marilynn Hughes from the Out of Body Travel Foundation for your questions. So it's great to be here with you. Everyone, feel free to come into the chat room and share with me your questions, for this is your time. I have a whole bunch of questions to address here, but I will be looking to see if you have any as well. Want to ask you all to make sure that you subscribe to our channel. It keeps us searchable across the internet. And also, if you feel so moved, please consider joining and becoming a member. You can click on the join button and see our different options for membership. Membership helps us to keep our resources free to everyone all across the internet and the web. And that is just such a valuable thing. And so we so appreciate it. So thank you so much for doing that for all our members that we already have, and for everyone who considers joining and becoming a member. We very much appreciate that. Wanted to also draw your attention to our new film, The Rites of Passage, produced by Brian Malum. Really great job on his part. Take a look at that. Take a look at it. Really good job. Really a lot of good information there from the fragrance of the mystical rose. It's going to tell you a lot of great things about the rites of passage, the mysteries in the mystical way. Really good information. So let's get started here with your questions. So starting tonight with this. Marilynn, talking to you honestly is one of the best parts of my week. I can't believe it. So I took your advice and I prayed some of my old regular Hebrew prayers before I meditated yesterday. And then when I closed my eyes, I thought of an age-old question I have had. Why does God need or want our praise? And I finally realized it helps us feel his love. When I realized that, I fell deeply into a meditative state and started to cry. My eyes pushed into the back of my head as much as they could, and I kept thinking the word in Hebrew, zakor, meaning remember. I only had 45 minutes, so I didn't get to transfer into any deeper state than that. I had no visions and I didn't hear any messages, but I felt such a deep, beautiful love. And my forehead, it was on fire. It buzzed all through, and then felt warm all night long. I don't know if I can ask, but what happened to me? What is happening to me? In essence, you're being transformed by love. God is love, and you're being transformed by God's love. So in praising God, we're filling our souls up to him. He doesn't need our praise, but our praise actually opens us up to receive from him, to receive his love. So it is by praising God that we receive rather than the other way around. A lot of people don't always recognize this. But it is also in this praise that we are uniting ourselves, becoming one with God. And it is in this uniting that our vibrations are raised up higher to meet him, our one and only true love. And so what we don't often realize is that when we are praising God, we're actually drawing down the vibrations to us of God's love. And that's what's happening here to this person that took my advice and did some of the practices that I suggested, is that when she was praising God, that praise enveloped her rather than her praise enveloping God. It was an invitation for God to envelop her. By the way, thank you. John is here with us. Hello, John, and thank you for joining us. Very glad to have you with us here today. Thank you so much for being here. And so really a good question, because a lot of people don't realize, we're not praising God for God's sake. We're doing it for our own. So great question. Moving on to the next, we have this question. Let me make sure I get to the beginning of this question. So, hi, Marilynn. Last night I felt the vibrations and went through what seemed to be a very long, in caps, tunnel. And hello, MT. Thank you for joining us. Great. Remember, in any case, my question to you is about music. I'm sure you've written about it in your books, but I love to hear your explanations. Can you expand on the effects of music that you have seen in your out-of-body travels? I ask because now, with so many YouTube channels having quite spectacular soothing and calming music therapies, such as 432 gigahertz, raising your aura and raise your vibration, 528 gigahertz, astral travel sounds at 639, frequency of abundance, 888, the angelic at 111, happiness frequency, serotonin, dopamine, endorphin releasing music, Pleiadian music, fifth dimension, alpha waves, and stuff like that. There are so much out there now. I start listening to these sounds. They relax me. Is this okay? I want to double check with you. They feel good, but well, sin can feel too good for a moment too, if you know what I mean. Aries jokes. And so I just want to check and see if that's something that is okay. And Ocean Camera Space Corps is with us. Welcome. Great to have you with us. She continues with the question, and I forgot, along these lines, can you offer some thoughts about music, sound, and frequency, which claim to be light body activation, like 999, or energy work involving light body activation and DNA activation? I believe I heard you mention that chakra balancing, clearing, which is energy work, is okay and can be beneficial. How about Reiki and shamanic music? Marilynn, forgive my stupidity, but what is a higher self? Is this higher self really true? In your out-of-body travels, have you witnessed and experienced if we all indeed have higher selves? How does it work if we are living this earthly experience here? Much love. So we have a few different kinds of questions here to address. So going back to the music and the frequencies, first of all, yes, that's okay. That's fine. And I guess what I would say is the frequencies and all that, there is some scientific evidence behind some of them. Just in terms of my own experience, I would say that I have not found the different frequencies to have. Oh, we have a super chat. Thank you, MT. Thank you. We have a super chat for $20. Thank you so much. Super chats help us to keep our resources free, keep us putting stuff out there, keeping the astral airways moving. So thank you so much for that super chat. Very much appreciated. We are, with the frequencies, there are people who have done these scientific studies that apparently do show that there is some type of scientific benefit to them. And so I don't dispute that in any way, shape, or form. I can say, though, from my own experience and from what I hear from other people, that the actual frequencies may not make that much difference in terms of, like, if you do this frequency or that frequency. It seems like what is best to do is use the one that you feel the best with. So rather than focusing on, well, this one says it's this particular frequency, so that one must be the one I should use. Use the one that seems to work best for you, the one that you just get the best results with. Like, so for instance, one of the things that I personally have found is I get a lot of results when I use Tibetan bowl musical sounds. Why? I don't know, but I do. So I just use them. You know what I mean? So, you just kind of see what works for you. And then I'll go through different phases as well. Like, for instance, um, I will also find I'll go through different periods where I'll get really good results from actually using CDs that have natural sounds. So I'll utilize CDs that have the sounds of the desert or the sounds of the mountains. So they don't necessarily always have frequencies in them. Some of them do. Some of them have soothing music or things like that. Some of them do not. And they're just actual sounds. Cries of the loon. I like that one. It works for me for some reason. So use what works for you, and I actually really like a lot of the Hindu uh, mantras and chant ones for meditation. A lot of us don't necessarily always know why certain ones work better for us. It can even be past life related. We may have some kind of, affinity. And so I probably have an affinity that's past life related. I've gone through periods where I will use exclusively Gregorian chant, Catholic Gregorian chant. And then I'll go through periods where I just can't do that because I've had too much of it and I have to go to something else. But I use all these things too that this writer is mentioning. I'll go in and I'll look up some of these things. The one I've used the most would be the 432. But I've found that, it really doesn't matter the different gigahertz or whatever. I've tried the different theta waves. I've tried the hemisync things. And what I find is they're not unhelpful, but I don't find them to be particularly, inductive for me. And I've heard the same from a lot of other people. There are others also though who feel otherwise. So just do what works for you and know it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Just see what you like. I do also personally often look for really good recordings of like Tibetan monks doing a recitation of the Om. I look for really good ones of those that are very soothing. Those are great for me to meditate to. I really like those. And frankly, what I've been doing for a while now, I can't explain why, but it's just what's working for me right now, is either meditating to complete silence or to the sounds of a thunderstorm. So you go through phases, so don't feel bad about that either. Do what feels good. Now, I've also gone through periods where I use CDs with specific prayers. The Holy Rosary, the Chaplet of the Divine Mercy, Catholic prayers, also other kinds of prayers like the Om Mani Padme Hung, Gayatri mantra. Forgive me for my bad pronunciations, things like that. And I listen to tapes of other religious music like the Sufis and different stuff. I like to do that. But for a while now, it's either silence or the sound of a thunderstorm. So I've kind of had to go into kind of an absence of sound. So we go through phases, and the relaxation factor of the music is absolutely beneficial. Another one that I've gone through periods where I utilize a lot is Hildegard von Bingen's unique chants. And that's something that people can definitely utilize. She brought those chants in from the celestial spheres. So they are very inductive because of that. So those are all excellent. Very, very useful. And don't be afraid to switch it up when you feel that it's time to switch it up. Don't feel like you have to stay with like either just one religious strain or one spiritual strain, or even like what this person is talking about, because these things will say, okay, this one says 528 will raise your aura and raise your vibration. Or you will have 639 as your astral travel sounds. They'll give you these different ideas for these frequencies, but I would beg to differ on that. I would just go with what feels right, because I don't think that these numbers that they're assigning to these are necessarily set in stone. I've tried them and I've also listened to them, and I would just go with the ones that are working for you. Don't be like, oh, I really want to raise my vibration, so I better stick with the 528. You might be better at raising your vibration at the 111 or the 432, so don't be worried about what they're naming it. Just focus on what works. That's real important, because people can get caught up in, well, it's saying that this is what it's going to do, so I better stick with that. And don't do that. Do what works. And so yes, this is absolutely okay, and it's good to have things that are very relaxing and help you in your practice. So let's go on to this next question, which is excellent, which is what is a higher self? And of course, this is not a stupid question. This is an excellent question, because people have, even those who have studied the spirituality for a long time, oftentimes do not understand what is a higher self. And so this is a great set of questions on this. So what is the higher self? The higher self is the aspect of our soul that resides the closest to God. Now, how do we try to picture this? So when we are understanding the multidimensional universe, this is one manifestation, one emanation of our soul here, this physical manifestation. Every dimension, see, there's what I'm doing with my hands is I'm showing you many dimensions coming outward towards the oneness of God. Every dimension has another emanation or projection of our soul. And it goes towards the oneness of God, which is up here. And so up here at the height, and we're down here. So let's picture this as a triangle, and God is up at the upper point, and we're down here at the bottom point, which is the wide part of the triangle, which we will call multiplicity, and God is up at the top point, which we will call the point of one. And so our higher self is the part of our soul that manifests and emanates the closest to that upper point and topmost point of one. We are emanating down here in multiplicity. What does that mean, multiplicity? It means that we are emanating in a personality. We are a fragment of our soul. And so our higher self, then, being up at that topmost point, imagine and try to understand this, has this expanded understanding of not just us, this one fragment, but all the fragments that have shoot out from that soul, which is our higher self, meaning all the experiences that have emanated from that higher aspect of ourselves into all these different personalities that have manifested into this multiplicity, which is Earth, the world. And it, of course, gets bigger than that because it goes into many worlds. So our higher self is that which contains the knowledge of all of our existences, all that we have been or ever will be, all that we have ever lived, died, emanated, and will become. So our higher self is the part of our soul that has the highest understanding and is the closest to a God understanding of our existence. And so, yes, this higher self is really true. And in my out of body travels, I have witnessed and experienced that we do all indeed have higher selves. And so then the next question, how does it work if we are living this earthly experience here? It works in that manner that we are that fragment. So we're like this little offshoot, and the higher self has and contains the knowledge of all of the offshoots, all of our lifetimes. What most of us will contain is just the knowledge of this one existence. Our higher self has the knowledge within it of all of our existences, and thus it has a divinized understanding of all of our existences. So there is a wisdom, a higher understanding that our higher self has that comes from residing in the topmost point, close to the one, residing close to God, this divinization, this understanding of how all of these experiences become correlated and brought together into a unity, into a cohesive understanding and a whole, and how the soul is then brought upward from the fragmentary understanding into this divinization process, this purification, which then also lifts up our little tiny soul into this higher understanding, slowly and slowly up through this triangular grid of understanding, which contains not just our many fragments, but the fragments of all life, all existence, and eventually leads our soul into this topmost point of one, where we reunite not just with our own higher self, but then with God Himself, this unity, this oneness, this consciousness, this universal being, where everything comes together. And then all of that mystery unveils itself to us. And I think I'm going to stop there on that, because this is a great mystery. It's a beautiful mystery. And it is really one of the most important essences of what we are to accomplish here in this existence, this incarnation here in this earthly life. Because what we are doing is we are uniting our mortal coil with that which is immortal. And our mortal coil is this fragment, and our immortal coil is the higher self. And that is literally what we are to do here. That's one of the mysteries, one of the rites of passage. As I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream, to check out the new film, Rites of Passage. It's one of the rites of passage that we must go through, reuniting this fragment, this mortal coil with the immortal coil, our higher self, because that's one of the things we must accomplish to graduate from this earthly realm, which is, the mortal worlds, the third and fourth dimensional realms, so that we can then progress to the next level of evolutionary cycles. So it's such an important thing to understand. So I can't even express what a great question that was, and how not stupid a question that was, because I don't know if y'all remember, but this person said, "Forgive my stupidity." This is not a stupid question. This is a really important question, and I really appreciate it. It was a great question because it touches on literally the essence of why we're here. So it's a great question. And that leads us into another question. And of course, everyone, feel free to jump in with any questions you might have as well. So that's what we're doing. This is your questions. And I'm just going through a bunch of questions that I did get, via email. And we're just running through them. So the next question I got was this one. Let me make sure I start in the right place. Here we are. Okay. Hi, Marilynn. I have a situation I want to get your input on. My sister-in-law was raised in the church as my wife was. For most of her life, she has been pretty devout, at least by appearances, and quite involved in the church and many charitable projects. However, in the last few weeks, she has officially come out as an unbeliever, something like what Martin Marty described in his book, Varieties of Unbelief. The author wrote in the introduction that, quote, "This book attempts to describe two types and a number of forms of modern unbelief. Unbelief can be defined in as many ways as can its opposite, belief. In this book, it represents ways in which people of the recent past have expressed themselves apart from belief in the God of Christian revelation. Likewise, she wrote on her Facebook profile, quote, "I've never been one to treat someone badly based on what they do or do not believe. I hope most people can afford me that same courtesy. We shall see. I am no longer considering myself a Christian. I'm not sure what I do believe, but I know what I don't. After 38 years, it's time to be honest with myself and those I care about. I've been vocal about my beliefs up until now, so I felt compelled to be vocal about my non-beliefs. Although not up for debate, I'm happy to have deep, meaningful conversations with anyone who wants to. This is not a new thing. For the past few weeks, I've put much thought and time into who I am and what I believe. I've talked with those who know me best and care about me most. I've considered everything, and this is my new path. Most importantly, my husband and I are on the same page, and we look forward to continuing to grow together. I've never felt so mentally and emotionally healthy." So I guess what I'm saying is that I don't really know how to respond to this, and I'm sure I'll encounter it more and more in my life. I advised her to examine the Baha'i faith, as it is universalist, and I think it would go well with her humanitarian tenets, which I think have always been more important to her than the stories and expectations of Christianity anyway. She told me she is quite happy not to be a part of any faith right now, and I respect her decision. As you might suspect, her family is not very happy with this. My wife doesn't agree with it, but isn't going to argue about it or anything. Is there a particular way that Christians should respond to unbelief? I believe in free will. Every person must choose for themselves what to believe or not believe. I also believe that we should advocate for the faith whenever it is constructive to do so, but never at the expense of alienating or disrespecting anyone. I've been a student of religion and other forms of belief all my life. And I'm planning to just listen to her talk about how she arrived at a position of unbelief if she will discuss it with me. Otherwise, I can't really think of anything I should do. Feel free to share this topic on your next Q&A video. Love ya. So, hi. I'm really glad to hear from you and glad to hear the family's doing well. I think the way you've outlined to handle it is actually perfect. Just listen to her and let her express how she came to believe what she believes. And if she's interested and asks about what you believe, you certainly can share, as long as you keep it respectful and also try to keep it about you and why you believe what you do. This is something we're all going to deal with much more as society is pushing this more and more, and it is just more socially acceptable to believe in nothing. But again, when we understand and know that God is love, we already know how to respond. I remember a beautiful experience I had with one of our grandmas a few years back in a similar experience. It was over someone in the family who'd kind of gone their own way. She said, "Just love them." There's a lot of wisdom in those few words. And I think your words contain that very simple wisdom as well. Many of us will go through many stages of our own faith throughout our lives. And there's no reason any of us have to be at odds with one another as we do so. Let us love one another as we travel life's journey. Keep me posted. And the response was, "Thanks so much. I'm glad I'm on the right track. My own Christianity continues to evolve, and I can tell that my understanding and practice of it is not the same as it was when I was a kid or even 10 years ago. And I'm sure it will be even more different when I play the last episode of this my life and when I get recast in another." So there we have that. And it looks like we have some stuff here in the chat room. Let's take a look. Ocean Camera Space Corps says, Paul S. Sorry, it's kind of small there. It says, Paul S. Memicos here, just lurking. Well, I'm glad to have you lurking, Paul. It's great to have you. And Adriana, hello. She says, hello, Marilyn. Hello, Adriana. Great to see you. Glad to have you here. Glad you're with us. And so here we are. Great to have all of you. Great to have everybody. So we're moving on to another question. Let's see. Adriana, we have some questions that were covered earlier that you might want to check in the replay. So let's check into this question. This one's kind of intense. So this is from a person who has lost a loved one. So, hi, Marilyn. This person had asked me to be open to receiving any messages from their lost loved one. And I'd received one, but that was all. I know you probably haven't gotten anything more, but I was just wondering if you knew why none of us have had a dream or anything except those things when he first passed. Do you think that's because he's just busy? I guess I've just asked so many times for him to just go to anyone. If maybe it's me not sleeping deep enough or whatever, and really none of us have. I was just curious if you knew about that. Gratitude and love to you. So, hi. I have to take the names out, so I always have to do it that way. I've been told that there has to be a barrier between the living and the dead because we both have different things we have to be doing in our different worlds. Sometimes, if a soul is pulled too much backwards into their previous life or the emotions of those left behind, it can be detrimental to their spiritual progress on the other side. So there are phases of passing. It is most common for people to see their loved ones closer to the time of death. And then there can be anniversaries, so to speak. Sometimes people will get a visit at significant moments or dates, but not always. And then there's also the factor that sometimes they can come visit for a period of time, and it can be very short, but then they have to go. I know my mother had been around me very much in 2020 for a period of 2 months. And then she told me that she had a warning for me, and I had to hear it then because she was going to be required to go and she would not be able to help me anymore for quite some time. She had to go elsewhere to work on her own spiritual path, whatever that might be. I realized that her visits had been granted for a short time because I really needed her, but the time granted was limited. There's no real way to know exactly why you haven't been shown more. But what you have to do is hold on to what you have seen. That will be the challenge, and it is the challenge for all of us. Not just what you've seen since his death, mind you, but what you saw, knew, and experienced while he was alive and with you. The experience you had of him after his death told you a great deal. And that is something you want to hold on to. While you remain in separate worlds, the contact might be minimal, but that is just for a time. We are mortal beings. You will be reunited again and you will be together again. But for whatever reason, right now, he is required to be fully immersed in the spiritual experience he's undergoing. So hold on to the love that he showed you when he was alive and the love that he showed you in the experiences that you did have and were granted. Step back just a little, knowing that you will always miss him terribly. There's no way around that. Realize that not seeing or hearing from him changes nothing. He is simply about doing the work of the Father, as you must also do here on earth. Love remains. Love always remains. If you don't see him, it's not because he doesn't wish to see you. It's just simply because it's not permitted. And it's not permitted for some greater reason that we're not permitted to understand. So rest easy. When you feel that panic, breathe. Remind yourself that the love is there. There is nothing to panic about. It is all still intact. Yes, he is in another world, but he has not left you. He is just waiting, and he is still living. His life is continuing. Yours must also continue here until you do meet again, which will happen. that love will be palpable and manifest. Don't let the veil between worlds ever let you doubt the love that will remain between you forever and beyond time, because time isn't real and the veil is only hiding it. Don't ever doubt it. Adriana says, I was surprised this is a late live. Yes, it was a spur of the moment decision. So thank you for joining me, even though I did do this late, and I apologize for my spur of the moment. And Andrew joins us. Hi, Marilynn. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for joining us as well. I appreciate it very much. And here we